So here's a question. I worked for ABC News and CBS News as a correspondent. And while I was there, I was Dan Rather at CBS. It was Peter Jennings at ABC. Rather was a rather avowed liberal. But there were constraints on what he could say as he delivered the nightly news. Jennings was a social liberal, but was very, very adamant that he wasn't going to inject his personal feelings into the news. That was a big difference between the two men. The culture of both ABC and CBS, and I was in New York. I was based in New York. I went all over the world, but that was my base, was liberal. Now I would say 75% of people working for the two news organizations were liberal. But again, they weren't running around, imposing stuff. It didn't happen. Now, this was back in the 80s, 1980s, okay? Now, all three networks are 90% liberal, particularly in Manhattan. The culture is liberal. If you wear a MAGA hat to work, you're not going to be there much longer. So just so you know what the situation is. Now, one of the issues that the network news has totally abdicated its responsibility on is the illegal migration. So you very rarely heard any condemnation of open borders or any reporting that this was hurting the country. And it obviously is. Just fiscally alone, the billions and billions of taxpayer dollars we have to spend, even now, to get these people out. Now it's insane. And then, the crime and 15% are criminals or whatever it may be, but it's substantial. You never hear that. Never on the three networks. They virtue signal all day long. Now, one of the big offenders here is ABC News. It's hard to say which is worse. NBC has MSNBC, which has just destroyed their brand. CBS, obviously a liberal, but ABC with The View, and remember, ABC News runs The View. It's unbelievable. So Tom Homan is the ICE chief, Homeland Security ICE chief. And he's in charge of the deportations, which are now mounting up very, very quickly in the first week of the Trump administration. So Homan, who's a tough guy, he goes on ABC with Martha Raddatz, who I worked with in Boston. I've known Martha for more than 30 years. And Martha's a really good reporter, okay? But a very liberal woman, always has been, always. Nothing wrong with that. Just don't let your ideology bleed into your reportage. That's supposed to be the line. I mean, all these reporters and analysts and anchors are human beings. They have a right to their opinion. But you got to discipline like Jennings did. You got to discipline. But Martha doesn't. She shows her liberalism all day long. And Martha is absolutely appalled that Homan and Trump are running down migrants. And she don't want that at all. So roll a tape on it.
What criminals are hiding in schools? Middle schools, elementary schools. You going to go into those?
How many MS-13 members are at age 14 to 17? Many of them. So, look, if it's a national security threat, public safety threat, and what you need to understand is a case by case. Name another agency, another law enforcement agency that has those type of requirements that they can't walk into a school or a doctor's office or a medical campus. No other agencies have those standards. These are well-trained officers with a lot of discretion. And when it comes to the sensitive location, there's still going to be supervisory review. So it's not like it's an open issue. But ICE officers should have discretion to decide if a national security threat or a public safety threat is in one of these facilities, then there should be an option for them to make the arrest.
But someday you could go into those schools and grab people who are just in the country illegally.
Someday you could go and buy a Bentley. See, this is what I mean. to ask that question, the only reason she asked it was to imply that the Trump administration and Homan are going to abuse their power and go in and terrorize migrant kids. Now, if they did that, then Raddatz would have perfect right to raise the question. But they aren't doing that. All the law says is there are no shelters anymore, no sanctuaries anymore. You're hiding undocumented people in a church or a school, the feds can go in and assess the situation. That's what it says. Martha doesn't like that. Why? Because Martha doesn't want any immigration enforcement. She'll tell you she does, but she doesn't, because it's against the left-wing culture. We have to be compassionate. Okay, these are just poor people who want to make better lives. That's true. That's true. 80% of them, they're hardworking, good people. And if you don't believe that, then you're wrong. But you can't destroy the fabric and borders of a country by allowing millions of people in unsupervised. You can't. No country can survive doing that. Now, does Martha think that deeply about it? No, because she gets off the air and everybody, oh, that was really good. And that's where she lives, in left-wing approval land. Now, the right-wing approval land is similar, but it's not nearly as pronounced because there aren't any right-wing networks. The three are all left-wing. PBS, NPR, that's a scandal. That's a scandal. And the cables, yeah, you got Fox and Newsmax, but, the center of the media is ABC, NBC, and CBS. At least it used to be. They've destroyed themselves, which is a good thing. I hate to say it, but it's true. Because they have a monolith, they have a stranglehold on thought in this country. I'll tell you this story again. CBS Sunday Morning sells books. It's the only network show that sells books now. Used to be I'd go on Good Morning America or the Today Show or CBS Morning News, whatever. I sell some books. I talk about the books, the killing books and Winston. I go on Letterman or Leno or whatever, Kimmel. I sell some books. Not anymore, because their audiences have shrunk down to a level where you don't move any books. But CBS Sunday Morning does sell books, 2 hours. The anchor of the show is Jane Pauley. Never met her. Seems like a very nice woman, right? You know Jane. Been around forever. Used to be on Today Show. I personally send her an email and say, hey, we got Confronting the President. It's going to be a big book. It's very relevant to presidential campaigns. Ghosted. Doesn't read. Very disrespectful. Extremely disrespectful. So I said, okay, maybe Jane doesn't like me. That's not unheard of, right? Let's do a trace. For 1 year on a CBS Sunday morning program, have they ever booked a non-liberal author? No, not one. Every single book author on that show is left liberal. Okay? Hey, Jane, that's not right. It's not fair, and you should stop it. Now, you don't like me? Fine. Lots of other books from non-liberals that are good books, and you should discuss them if you're an honest person. So, summing up, is a culture. You go outside that culture at ABC, CBS, and NBC, you're a pariah. You're not going to advance your career. They'll hold it against you. That's what you see. That's why this is not a level playing field. Thank you for watching. To view full episodes of the No Spin News anytime, sign up to become a BillO'Reilly.com premium or concierge member today.